1,000 years ago, when empires ruled the earth and men carved kingdoms with fire and steel, a storm rose in the east. From the northern mountains came 100,000 horsemen, the fury of the world's greatest empire. From the southern jungles marched 50,000 more, a sea of armor and iron banners glinting in the sun. Between them lay a small kingdom, scarred by war, but unbroken. For 20 years, its rivers had been silent. But beneath those calm waters, something ancient was waiting. When dawn came, the river exploded. Flames devoured the horizon. Mighty warships burned, their sails collapsing into the crimson tide. Arrows rained from the sky like black storms. The thunder of drums shook the heavens, and the empire that once knew no fear found itself staring into the heart of its own destruction. This was no ordinary battle. It was fire against arrogance, mind against might, and it would be remembered for 1,000 years. In the spring of 1285, the Mongol Empire returned to the south. For decades, they had conquered everything in their path, from the frozen plains of Russia to the deserts of Persia, from the walls of Baghdad to the steppes of Korea. Now their next target was the small yet defiant kingdom of Dai Viet, a land of rivers, jungles, and warriors who refused to kneel. The first invasion, in 1258, had ended in humiliation for the Mongols. The Vietnamese forces under King Tran Tai Tong fought fiercely, and though vastly outnumbered, they drove the invaders out. But empires never forget their defeats. And so, in 1285, Kublai Khan, the great Khan of the Mongol Empire, ordered a second invasion, larger, deadlier, and more determined than ever. Two massive armies were sent. From the north, Prince Togan, Thoat Hoan, led nearly 100,000 Mongol and Chinese troops, marching down through the passes of modern-day Langson. From the south, through present-day Laos, came General Sogatu Toado, with 50,000 men, a brutal commander known for his speed and ferocity. Their plan was simple, a pincer strike, to crush Dai Viet from both directions and trap its capital, Thanglang, between two unstoppable tides of fire. But Dai Viet was not defenseless. By now, King Tran Nan Tong and his uncle, the legendary strategist Tran Hung Dao, had transformed the kingdom into a fortress of resistance. Every river became a defense line. Every village was a spy post. Every peasant was ready to fight. The Mongols were unmatched in cavalry, mobility, and sheer discipline. Their arrows darkened the skies. Their horses could move 100 miles a day. But Dai Viet held an advantage the steppe riders could not understand: the land itself. Dense jungles, humid swamps, unpredictable rivers. These were weapons as deadly as any sword. Among the Tran generals was one man unlike the rest, Prince Tran Not Duat, a scholar, diplomat, and warrior fluent in the languages of neighboring peoples. He had once lived among the Song Chinese, learning their customs and speech. This knowledge would soon become his most dangerous weapon. As the Mongols marched deeper into Dai Viet, burning towns and forcing villagers to flee, the Tran court prepared its counterstroke. While Tran Hung Dao would defend the north, Tran Not Duat was assigned a critical mission: to intercept Sogatu's southern army at a strategic river crossing known as Ham Tu Ford. There, on the mist-covered waters of the Red River, a plan unlike any in history was about to unfold. A plan built not only on courage, but on deception. As Sogatu's army advanced northward, the once peaceful banks of the Red River trembled under the thunder of foreign drums. Villages burned, fields were trampled. Refugees fled upriver, whispering that the Mongols have returned. But at a bend in the river called Ham Tu Ford, the defenders of Dai Viet were waiting. Prince Tran Not Duat had studied his enemy carefully. He knew that Sogatu's southern army contained many Chinese auxiliaries, veterans from the fallen Song dynasty, men who once fought against the Mongols and were now forced to serve them. To exploit that weakness, Tran Not Duat devised a deception so bold it bordered on madness. He ordered a contingent of Vietnamese troops to disguise themselves as Song Chinese soldiers, painting their banners with Song symbols, mimicking their language, even altering their armor and ships to resemble the old Song fleet. The ruse was flawless. Under the cover of fog, they would approach Sugeta's fleet as if they were long-lost reinforcements from China. To make the illusion perfect, Tran Nhat Duat himself dressed in the robes of a Song general. He spoke in fluent Chinese, his tone calm and commanding. His sub-commanders, among them Tran Quang Kai and Tran Bin Trong, prepared their men to strike at a moment's notice. Along both sides of the river, hidden among the reeds and bamboo, Vietnamese troops lay in wait. Archers strung their bows. Fire rafts were coated with oil and pitch. Every boat, every torch, every arrow was prepared in silence. Only the sound of the river remained, slow, dark, and patient. By dusk, the trap was ready. Small decoy ships began drifting downstream, their sails marked with the Song emblem. From afar, they looked harmless. Allies, perhaps. When Sugeta's scouts reported their approach, the Mongol general laughed. He believed fortune had favored him, that reinforcements from the former Song had come to join his campaign. He could not have been more wrong. Dawn broke over the Red River like a blade of silver cutting through the mist. The Mongol fleet had anchored near the bend of Ham Tu Ford, their banners heavy with dew. Sugeta stood at the bow of his command ship, armored in black lacquer and iron, eyes fixed on the ghostly silhouettes drifting toward him. The supposed Song fleet moved gracefully through the fog. 10, 20, then 30 ships, their sails faded but proud, their decks lined with archers standing at attention. From afar, even the veteran Mongol officers could not tell the difference. The deception was complete. "Signal them to approach," Sugeta ordered. A drumbeat echoed across the water. The disguised Vietnamese ships responded, hoisting flags marked with the characters for loyalty and honor, the old banners of the fallen Song dynasty. The Mongols cheered. They believed allies had come to reinforce their invasion. As the two fleets drew closer, the air thickened. The fog coiled like smoke, muffling the creak of oars and the murmur of men. No one noticed that the current was shifting, that the Vietnamese ships were subtly positioning themselves upstream, ready for the wind to turn. Then, without warning, a horn sounded, low, deep, and haunting. Every Song soldier on the approaching ships suddenly dropped their false banners and drew their bows. Arrows streaked through the fog, a black storm of death. Within seconds, Mongol decks erupted in chaos. Men fell screaming into the water. Flaming rafts ignited downstream, their fire reflecting off the river's surface like molten gold. The trap had been sprung. From both banks, Tran Quang Kai's hidden forces unleashed a storm of arrows. Fire catapults hurled burning pitch into the heart of the Mongol fleet. Thick black smoke rolled over the river as one warship after another caught fire. The sound of cracking wood and exploding oil barrels filled the air. Sugeta roared for order. He tried to rally his men, but confusion reigned. The fog, once an ally, now blinded them. Their arrows missed, their ships collided, and the tide itself seemed to turn against them. At that moment, Tran Nhat Duat gave the signal. Hundreds of small Vietnamese boats, previously hidden among the reeds, surged forward. Warriors with torches and spears boarded burning Mongol ships, cutting down the enemies in close combat. Steel clashed against steel, the screams of battle echoing for miles along the river. The Red River, once calm and reflective, had become a cauldron of fire and fury. And above it all, the voice of Tran Nhat Duat thundered through the smoke. "Strike now!" For Dai Viet, the river answered him, with flame, with blood, and with victory waiting to be claimed. The Red River was burning. The fog that had hidden the trap was now a curtain of flame, rolling and twisting as the wind carried fire from one ship to another. The air reeked of pitch and blood. Arrows hissed through the smoke like swarms of angry spirits. The Mongol fleet, once a symbol of unstoppable conquest, had turned into a graveyard. Hundreds of ships collided, their decks blazing, men leaping into the river only to drown in armor that dragged them to the depths. The cries of the dying mingled with the roar of the flames, a chorus of ruin echoing across the water. From the northern bank, Tran Quang Kai's archers unleashed volley after volley, cutting down anyone who tried to escape. From the south, Tran Bin Trong led a charge of small warboats, smashing into the flank of the Mongol formation. The Vietnamese used the river like a blade, slicing, turning, striking from every direction. At the center of it all stood Tran Nhat Duat, calm amid chaos. His robe was singed, his sword gleaming with reflected fire. He watched the enemy collapse exactly as planned. Each movement, each fire raft, each horn signal, all had been executed with precision. Across the flames, Sogetu's flagship still floated, a black fortress defying the inferno. The Mongol general, furious and desperate, roared orders to regroup, but his command had dissolved into panic. His archers couldn't see through the smoke. His oarsmen screamed as fire poured down from burning rafts above. Even the river, his path of escape, had become a trap of floating corpses and wreckage. Realizing the battle was lost, Sogetu tried to fight his way out. He gathered his remaining guards, forcing his flagship forward through burning debris. But the river itself seemed to resist him. His ship struck a hidden obstacle, a submerged Vietnamese stake, and halted with a thunderous crack. The collision threw men overboard, and the deck split apart under the weight of fire. As Sogetu rose, sword in hand, a spear pierced his armor. He staggered back, roaring in defiance before collapsing to his knees. The great general of the South, the terror of so many lands, fell beneath the flames of a small river he had never known existed. A cheer rose from the Vietnamese lines. The fire illuminated their faces. Soot-streaked, drenched in sweat, but alive. Tran Nhat Duat raised his sword high. The wind carried his voice across the battlefield. Let the world know, Dai Viet stands free. By sunset, the battle was over. The Red River flowed quietly again, carrying with it the ashes of a once invincible army. The name Ham Tu would forever be remembered, not as a place of fear, but as the turning point of a war. When the flames of Ham Tu finally died down, the river was silent again. Ashes floated on the water like black snow. The bodies of Mongol warriors drifted beside the ruins of their ships, grim reminders of how quickly victory could turn to dust. The death of Sogetu sent shockwaves through the entire Mongol invasion. In the north, Prince Togan, Toat Hoan, received the news with disbelief. The southern army, once meant to crush Dai Viet from behind, was gone. His perfect pincer attack had collapsed. For the first time, the Mongol commanders began to feel something they had never felt before: fear. Inside Dai Viet, the victory at Ham Tu spread like wildfire. Villagers who had fled returned to their homes. Monks rang temple bells in the mountains. Everywhere, people whispered the same words: the Mongols can be defeated. That single belief was worth more than 1,000 swords. It united the nation. The court of King Tran Nan Tong saw the moment they had been waiting for. Orders were sent to rally the armies, a full-scale counteroffensive. Along the rivers and roads, banners of red and gold fluttered again. From the capital to the distant provinces, men who had hidden in forests now took up arms. The victories came swiftly: Chuangdong, Tai Ket, Thonglong. Each battle was a hammer blow against the invaders. By June, the Mongol army that once numbered more than 150,000 men was retreating in chaos. Their horses starved, their supply lines were cut. They had underestimated the land, the weather, and most of all, the people who defended it. At last, the once proud generals of the Great Khan fled north, crossing the same mountains they had once marched through in triumph. Behind them, the banners of Dai Viet rose once more over the capital. And from the ashes of Ham Tu, a legend had been born, one that would echo for centuries, the moment when courage and cunning turned the tide of history. The flames of Ham Tu did more than destroy an army. They forged a legend. On that river of fire, a small nation stood against the storm of the Mongol Empire and prevailed. It was not brute strength that won the day, but intelligence, patience, and the will of a people who refused to kneel. For generations, the Mongols had crushed kingdoms from Persia to Poland, their banners casting shadows over half the world. Yet in the green valleys of Dai Viet, their might was broken by strategy. Tronnot Duat's deception, his mastery of disguise and timing, turned the empire's own arrogance against itself. Ham II was not merely a victory of arms, it was a victory of the mind. News of the triumph spread through every province. Bells rang in mountain temples, and drums echoed across rice fields. Farmers, monks, and soldiers all spoke the same words: the Mongols can bleed. And with that belief, the spirit of resistance was reborn. From Ham II came a wave of victories: Chuangdong, Taiket, Thang-Long, battles that drove the invaders into ruin. For the first time in history, the great Mongol war machine met a nation it could not conquer. It was not the vast armies or the endless resources of an empire that triumphed, but a unity of heart, a determination stronger than fear. Centuries have passed and empires have faded into dust, but the story of Ham II still flows with the Red River. Fishermen say that on misty mornings, you can still see flickers of flame dancing on the water and hear faint echoes of drums rolling beneath the fog. They are not the sounds of war, but the heartbeat of a nation that remembers. Ham II stands as a reminder that freedom, once won through sacrifice, is eternal, and that no empire, however vast, can extinguish the fire of a people who fight for their soul.